Welcome to the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, where there's always another secret.
Bonus episode! Today is November 9th, 2020. We are almost exactly 1 week out from the release of Rhythm of War, and this is a special bonus episode of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies. I'm Bill, and I am joined, as always, by my maritime co-hosts, Amy and Jordan. Welcome,
Yar.
guys.
Hey.
Yar.
Yar.
Now, before we get started, we do want to remind our listeners that the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies is not a spoiler-free podcast. That means if there is something in the Cosmere you haven't read and you're worried about hearing spoilers, you might want to go finish those up first and then come back and join in the discussion. Now, tonight's bonus episode is going to be a little different than most. This is mostly going to be us reacting to Dawnshard, discussing what we like, and a little bit more freeform than normal. We're probably going to be bouncing all over the place in the storyline, and there will probably be some on-the-spot theory crafting and more than a little bit of just plain gushing. But before we get to that, next week's episode is going to be recorded the day before Rhythm of War comes out, and Jordan has got something special cooked up for us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, Jordan?
Yes. Next Monday, a battle will occur. A three-way battle between Bill, Amy, and a surprise guest, but mostly Erevar from the Arian from the World Hoppers Guide podcast. So not much of a surprise. I'm really spoiling things here. But
didn't we announce that a week ago?
We did last time.
Yeah, and so, but pretend it's a surprise. Pretend it's a rock. Anyway, the thing that we're going to be doing is the Rhythm of War Championship. Do you think you have what it takes to win it? Because not only do we have these three hosts, but literally the entire world, but I hope not because it require a lot of work on my part if that were the case, but the entire world can participate. If you go check out our social media, right? We put it up there, right?
Not yet, but I will soon.
Okay, yeah. It'll be, by the time you guys hear this, it'll be up there. It's going to link you to a Google form. You are going to
You're doing great.
I know, right? we are. You can also go find it on the Stormlight Archive subreddit if you want to go find the thread there, or you could just poke us and we'll get you the link. It'll happen. It'll be great. Mm-hmm. You're going to answer questions that are worth points. These points will accumulate, and hopefully by the end, you will have amassed enough points to win. What will you win? Well, it's a pretty awesome print. We have a friend of the show named Allison Johnston who is just an amazing artist, and she drew...
Honestly, one of the best artists I've seen.
Yeah, and she drew her rendition of a Chasm Fiend. Not drew. Is it paint? It's just gorgeous. I don't know.
I think she light wove it.
Yeah, she probably did. But this is a limited print of only 30, and she's gifting out number 6 for us.
Yep, number...
And it's going to be so good. Get it? 6?
Exactly.
6 podcasts. That's the joke. These are the jokes, people. So yeah, if you want to have a chance to get a hold of this, go fill it out, answer the questions. You're going to be making predictions about Rhythm of War, and some of them are very technical book questions, and others are a little more silly.
And some are plot questions, and some are
plot questions. Some are literal questions.
Yeah. So Jordan's been sort of mad sciencing up a way of quantifying these predictions, and whoever wins will get this print.
So definitely go fill it out, and then come next week on Monday to the live recording, because one, let's face it, we're all going to start reading it. You're all going to start reading it. When Wednesday comes, are you really going to be wanting to listen to us?
Did you tell them what it's a print of?
Yeah, Chasm Fiend.
Okay, good. Yeah. I missed that.
Yeah, her rendition of a Chasm Fiend.
Yeah, so she is a very, very dragon-oriented artist. She draws a lot of dragons, and so it's a very different style of Chasm Fiend than a lot of people have seen, but it's phenomenal and it works.
It looks pretty.
It's gorgeous.
It's so good. And it's pretty big too. What was the dimensions on that again?
It's not huge. It's a poster.
Okay. I don't know. It seemed big to me, but
It was like 25 by 16 or something like that.
is that not big?
That's 2 feet long.
Feels big to me.
No,
Oh, okay.
Well, compared to like a little
I mean it's not tiny, but
I overestimate posters. Apparently, we're learning so much. No, it's going to be a ton of fun, and you should definitely come watch it live next week and geek out with us, because when Wednesday comes around, when our normal podcast drops, you're probably going to be waist deep in just reading Rhythm of War.
Oh, the
So
things.
if you
Yeah.
really the only time you have to listen to us next week is Monday, so you should probably just be in chat anyway.
Yep.
Yep.
Awesome. So, guys, let's dive in. I'm excited. So, just a little backstory. Dawnshard is a, quote, novella. Technically, it's 57,000 words, which pushes it into novel territory. It's on the short end of novel, but it is technically a novel. It takes place between the end of Oathbringer and the beginning of Rhythm of War, and it features Rissyn, who is the Thalen girl who was traveling around with her Babsk and trading, and she jumped off the back of a great shell, and bad things happened to her.
She's
now
had
she's
an
hardcore.
interlude every single book, hasn't she?
I think
Yes.
so, yeah.
Possibly, yeah, even more than one, I believe. At least one. I can't remember if there's more. Anyway, at the end of Oathbringer, though, she was given a ship by her Babsk and named it the Wandersail, which, last we heard of a Wandersail was Hoyd telling a story to Kaladin. Was it Kaladin he was telling? Yeah, he was telling Kaladin.
Yeah, it was Kaladin.
It also features everyone's favorite formerly one-armed Herdazian, the Lopin, otherwise known in this book as Radiant the Lopin.
I told this Bill, I used to have a guildmate whose screen name was The Terrible Barbecue, but we were part of a guild called the Secret Agent Clan, and so he was Agent the Terrible Barbecue. But then he got his
Very
PhD,
nice.
and he became Dr. Agent the Terrible Barbecue, PhD.
Very nice. So this book was conceived as one of the rewards for people who helped fund the Way of Kings Leatherbound Kickstarter a few months ago, and it was sent to them a few days ago, and by the time this episode posts, it should be available to buy in ebook format. Unfortunately, printed copies and audiobooks won't come until sometime later. Audiobooks will probably be about a year, I think Brandon has said, but that's subject to change.
Yeah.
And the printed copies of the books, I think, will be closer to the beginning of the year. Again, I can't say that.
It's all about supply for the materials.
Exactly.
Is getting a hold of them.
All right, guys, let's jump right in. Dawnshard. What do we think?
It was awesome. It was kind of interesting because I was actually in Hawaii when I was reading part of it, so it was even warm. I mean, the book, they're not in warm places, but there is the ocean, so that was kind of a cool thing for me.
Right.
I love Chiri Chiri, and I really want to make one now, but it's super intimidating to try and make one. So,
What's
we'll
so
see
hard
what
about
happens
making
with
a
that.
bug dragon?
Only a lot.
Guys, they keep referring to Chiri Chiri as the Larkins as the ancient protectors. I'm just like, they're dragons. I want to
dragons.
see
It's cool.
a scene between Frost and Chiri Chiri because I think there's something going on.
He's so cute.
And so,
Near the beginning, I was just glad to see that Yalb lived.
yes, it was such a great little nod.
Yes. We
Like
love
that
y'all.
was just we're sitting here, we're missing. It was hinted that Yalb survived in Words of Radiance.
Yeah.
because she drew the picture and it was of him getting out, and it's like, is she seeing something?
Or is she just hoping? We don't know, but now we know she was.
and
seeing, and it's great.
But apparently only Yalb and one other sailor.
No, it was two.
survived. Oh, two others. That's
Yeah,
right.
Two.
but they'll
But
never
And they
Yeah,
all
it
got
was just-
split
it
up
was just
onto
those three.
different. Yeah, they're all on different
Nope.
ships because they're not lucky anymore.
Right. Well, I mean, when your ship turns to water,
It's kind of an issue. Yeah.
superstitions start to arise.
It's one of my favorite things that Risson talks about, how you can't let the superstitions and those things get crossways with the regulations, because the regulations you can actually change.
Yeah. When she's now I'm forgetting his name. Her assistant. Oh, what's his name?
Nixel?
Nickley. Like when she's talking to him at one point, and she's like, "Remember how I talked to you about the hazing and that you have to let hazing happen at a certain level?" That kind of reminds me of that, and that you can't. They tried to get rid of hazing in some situation, and it just made it worse.
The thing I liked about Nickley is how willing he was to learn.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like Milan with humans too, that way.
A little bit.
Both very
Milan,
alien.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only so this would be Sanderson's like second character to kind of have that same feel to it, but they don't feel too same. They don't feel too like they're carbon copies by any degree, but just that they're both experiencing the same thing. Same thing that way.
Yeah. I think Milan's better at it than Nickley.
Oh, yes. But she's also had a lot more experience and...
Well, and her culture is all about imitating humans, whereas it's clear the Sleepless are sort of new to this game.
Yeah,
Right.
they're figuring out how to do it more than just a surface level.
Well, and they also... They have a more difficult path to imitating a human.
Yeah, what was it? He said it took him like several hundred years just to grow the right kremlings to do fingers.
Right.
And I'm like,
what?
It's just
gross.
creepy.
Oh, there's so much squid.
Yeah. They're cool, but ugh.
Just the way when they get into the fight and Cord tries to like stab them with a sword and like their body sort of opens up around it, and it's just like I've seen that scene from The Thing. This doesn't end well. This ends only in blood.
It's not good, no.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the Sleepless. We've gotten our first Sleepless viewpoint.
Yeah, I mean,
it was strange.
We had a conversation with one when in Edge Dancer.
Right, but this is
like for
viewpoint
in the time they're in their head,
from their perspective.
Yeah,
heads,
like
several heads.
Yes, lots of heads.
All of the heads. I mean, basically, they're Oogie Boogie.
Yeah.
From The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah, but they don't destroy by coming apart.
They're giant sacks of bugs.
Well,
okay.
Yeah.
One, it's interesting, just the concept of a being that can literally be in two places at the same time, but not because it's like some weird, duplication thing. It's just their biology means they're modular in nature, which I do like the comparison they make where it's like, it's no different than humans. You guys are like this as well. And it's like, yeah, but we don't have the ability to control the individual parts of us that are separate. Because each of our cells do act independently of each other. They do their own division. They do their own... it's all that. But it comes together in a very different way. We can't do it on purpose, but they're just like, it's basically the same. It's kind of not.
No, not really. I mean, there's some technical... No, not quite the same.
Oh, and it's every time they like come apart and stuff, it's just horrified. You're like, she's talking like it's all a bunch of skin like coming together. You're just like, okay.
Oh yeah, and like I want someone to do a good artist rendition of it because I can't totally picture it because like their seams are at wherever they have a tattoo and stuff like that, or where they have like clothing would normally cover it and stuff like that. But it just, I don't know if a drawing of it would actually freak me out more though. Compared to just imagining it.
There's a good question in chat that says, "Do you think we'll get Sleepless in all the novellas?" I was actually wondering that myself.
I mean, I don't know why he wouldn't, because I mean, if they're as knowledgeable and far spread as they are, then I don't know why they wouldn't be involved in all the big events.
My guess is no, just because I don't think Brandon would want to tie himself down to that restriction. in these.
Unless that's sort of part of his plan.
It could, if it's part of his plan, cool. But it's one of those. I just get the impression with the novellas, he sort of picks something that he wants to just sort of talk about, and because I mean, we almost didn't get Wandersail, right? We almost got a different book.
Yeah.
It was a story. It was almost a story about rock, but that could have also included Sleepless. Because remember, Sleepless are pretty ubiquitous all across Roshar because they can spread themselves so much. Mm-hmm. And so,
Speaking of
the
rock,
other thing, the other thing about Sleepless is the backs of each of the books. The little summaries and everything were each written by a Sleepless.
Oh.
And so
I hadn't realized
they're the ones who refer to them as the spy, or is it the spy or the liar? Referring to Shallan. The backs of each of the books have sort of a little bit of a description, but it's from the perspective of a Sleepless.
I'm gonna have to reread them because I didn't realize that.
I loved Cord in this.
Oh, I know. And one of my favorite parts was when Rissanen was like, "Wait, do you speak Veden?" And then she's like, "Oh my goodness, I can actually speak and be not like I had the vocabulary that I want." And it was, and then there was that with Huio. Is it Huio, right?
Huio
too.
Huio.
I'm gonna get all of these names wrong because I haven't read them in a little bit, but both of them just like where you get to see them talking in their own language, and so they don't come off as very stilted with their speech and having to be particular about their word choice, where they can just talk.
Julio in particular was so interesting to find out that he's actually really smart.
He's smart.
But
super smart.
Because the thing is, he's not book smart the way that Rushu is. But because
hold up, before we get into Huyo, I do want to finish up. We were talking a little bit about the Sleepless and where they go, and I do want to jump into that, but I want to finish up a thought before we get too deep into that. So Texas Blade in chat mentions, he says, we know from Cord that there are Sleepless in the Peaks. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so there are Sleepless in the
or at least they have
Peaks.
legends about them in the Horneater Peaks.
Also, when I read Sleepless in, my immediate thought was Seattle, and I just oh gosh.
If you don't think I was trying to shoehorn some Sleepless in Seattle pun, just know that I couldn't find anything that rhymed or sounded like Seattle.
But yeah, okay, so back to Huyo.
Yes. I also really liked him getting the third ideal. I'd forgotten that a lot of them hadn't gotten there. And that was really interesting that he
so hard when he had said the third ideal.
And looked at Lopen.
And it was about Lopen too. That you're just like, oh, poor, not to divert to Lopen, but poor Lopen realizing that maybe people don't like it when I poke fun of them all the time.
Yeah, it was interesting. But we saw a lot of maturing of characters in this book. I mean, Rissan mentions it herself several times. She's like, "Oh my gosh, I was a bratty teenager."
Oh yes,
I was awful. And then we see Lopen, sort of realizing a little bit towards the end, and that's when it gets
it.
Rua cracked me up.
I love
this whole
Rua.
book.
Yeah.
And literally spots he was cracking up. He is really not bound to that human form as much as Syl seems to like.
No. Yeah.
Well, but what I'm talking about, though, is when Lopen mentions, he'll try and sort of be better, and that counts as the third oath. And Rua basically falls over like he's dead and then turns into a knife. And I love Lopen's reaction. Just like, that counts? That's when it... And he's just not getting the drama that he so craves.
He needs it, and he's not getting it.
I love it.
Which is probably good for Lopen's growth, is not having everything be a show about the Lopen, That quiet moments are okay, too, even if he doesn't like it.
Chat is comparing Rua to a Dresden Files character, and I can't remember it's a little pixie. I know the character, and yeah. Huh?
Is it Toot Toot?
Yeah, Toot Toot.
I love Toot Toot.
And I was just I can see that comparison.
Yeah, I actually just read Battleground too, so I was like, wait, I know who we're talking about, maybe. So.
Apparently. Anyway. But no, Rua was just all over the place this time. And can I just say, I love that Lopin's chapter heading icons are a picture of Rua making a rude gesture with three extra arms.
Oh, that's what it was. I was trying to figure it out. I was like, what's with the 3 arms?
The picture is almost like the Vitruvian Man, but
Yeah.
on one side.
Just on one. On the...
Well, I mean, because he's with the one-armed Herdazian, so
Yeah.
he
So
has
makes
to have
sense,
one arm
yeah.
on the other side out of respect.
So I
right?
did. It seemed like it wasn't always the right graphic though in the ebook, like because there'll be sometimes that it would still be, the symbol or the little logo for Risen, and it would be a Lopin bit.
I never noticed that.
So I don't know. I don't know if it was an editing problem or what, or I was seeing something funny. But I could have sworn that there were some spots where it wasn't the Lopin thing when it was a Lopin chapter. But I don't know for sure.
How much did you like the ship teasing of Lopin and Risen?
I am on that ship so hard.
I don't know.
Lopin was flirting with all the wrong girls, and I'm just like, no, I am. And Jordan hates the name that I've given him, but it's Lopisson. I'm sorry.
Lopsin? Lopisson?
First of all, it's
Lopisson?
Ropin, because I don't like pissin put in the middle of it. Second of all, if it is Lopisson, it's the Lopisson, okay?
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I don't know. I'm not sold on that ship, but we'll
What I
have to
really
see.
liked about it is
I am hard on board.
I liked how he understands her more than everyone else does, because he
Yes.
knows what it's like to have some form of limb limitation.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I got more the feeling of friends, like good friends, and I don't know if that's just me wanting Risen to stay a strong, independent woman or what, but I didn't get the pairing as it didn't. I don't share
See,
it.
and I love
thing
the
is-
idea of Risen constantly.
The thing is, pairing her with
Lopin.
Lopin would, like, she would have to be strong and independent, because, like, neither of them would really try to control the other.
I
which
know.
I
It
love.
just.
Do you
I
think
don't know, it
Lopin's
doesn't-
the responsible parent?
No. That's a no. No.
It's gonna be sticking babies to walls.
Oh,
gosh.
goodness.
And the baby, of course, as Lopin's child, would be giggling his head off.
Literally,
Oh,
if he's
man.
taking after Uncle Rua.
Okay. So, let's talk a little bit about the namesake of the novella, the Dawnshard itself.
Oh boy, that was.
It was so unclear what it was, but still, it actually reminded. Have y'all read? What is it? It's from Discworld, the Rincewind books.
I haven't. I know of them, but I haven't read those ones. I've read
Okay.
more of the Death ones.
I don't know anything about Discworld.
Basically, what happens is there are 8 spells that created the world, and he read one of them in a book, and it inserted itself into his brain. And because of that, since it was such a powerful spell, he couldn't do any other magic, and it was too powerful for him to use. But it's just one of these, epic, godlike spells that enters his head, and that's sort of the vibe that I got. Is she allowed it in, and then it just sort of entered her, became her.
Yeah,
did
it's
something.
Yeah,
I
don't know how to
read
define it quite
something?
well. Go for it.
Okay.
This comes from the Cosmere subreddit. This is a Dawnshard crack theory written by one Albrinaf. So the Dawnshard command change was in all caps. So is unite them, and so is survive. It has been going around that these are maybe other Dawnshard commands, and I fully buy that. This means that the second Dawnshard on Roshar might be the Unity Dawnshard. So it's interesting, because it is true. I can't find anywhere else where Brandon does all caps. And
Interesting.
Yeah, and the thing is, this actually, I don't know about you, but once we found out that this was a command, and it's, sort of stated that they used these things to shatter ad nauseum. And I don't know about you, but I suddenly felt so stupid, because this whole time we keep hearing about the Dawnshards, and I'm thinking, is it a sword? Is it plate? Is it some device? What is it? Because we talk about, do you have your shards, and it's a blade or is it a plate? I never thought of Dawn of the Shards as in the shards of Adonalsium.
Is that... So it's not... So the different commands are not what made up Adonalsium, right? They're what shattered Adonalsium?
That's what seems to be implied.
Okay, because the way you said that, Jordan, made me think that maybe those 8 commands, or is it 6? It's 8 commands.
It's 4.
Four commands.
4 commands? Okay. Made me think that maybe they were what formed Adonalsium, but that doesn't feel quite right.
The 16
either.
Shards are what formed Adonalsium.
Okay, yeah, I just... it's getting weird in my head, keeping everything straight.
So, one of our Discord members, Hoki, came to me with an interesting theory that he wanted me to present tonight, and I thought it'd actually be I thought it had some interesting concepts behind it. So he pointed back to The Way of Kings. There's a conversation between Hoyd and Kaladin, where Hoyd says, "I began life as a thought, a concept, words on a page. That was another thing I stole, myself." So he has he's theorized that Hoyd, like Rissyn, is a Dawnshard.
Oh.
So he doesn't hold one of the shards of Adonalsium, but he may perhaps hold a Dawnshard.
Which would be, it would make sense why the 17th shard would, or that's the right name, right? Or is that just a website?
The 17th shard is a group.
Yeah, that's right. That's the group. Yes. I was doubting myself. I was like, wait, it's not the 16th shard, right? Okay, no. Okay. Anyway, that would make sense for why they would be wanting to find him. Not just because he's causing problems, but also because he holds that kind of power and they don't want that power to fall into the wrong hands.
Right.
But he would want to stay an independent agent. So.
I found the quote.
Oh, man. Go ahead.
Let's see. All the greatest applications require intent and command. You're familiar with that? Demands on a level no person could ever manage alone. To make such commands, one must have the reasoning, the breadth of understanding of a deity. And so, the Dawnshards, the 4 primal commands that created all things. He paused, and then eventually they were used to undo Adonalsium itself.
Yep.
So they have the power to both create and to destroy.
Okay, so what you said, again, it requires an intent and a command. Now that's awakening. Yep. That's how awakening works. You have an intent, you speak a command, and things happen.
Voila. Yeah.
Well, and one of the things that has been implied several times is that all the magic that we see, it's been done before. That it's all being patterned after something that had existed. Pattern. Yes, patterns, lies. Anyway, and so one of the big ones was obviously in Mistborn. We know that preservation patterned these things after these patterns, because he's using it as hints and stuff to let people know what his plan is. It would make sense that Endowment, who, if these are the words that are used to both create and destroy, her magic system, which is all about, giving life to things, would follow a similar pattern.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
So, speaking of the Dawnshard, I'm wondering now if each of them has different magic systems that are associated with it, because do we know when Hoyd picked up his awakening abilities?
Well, he was on
he was on Nalthis.
He was on Nalthis in Warbreaker.
So is that, we don't know when he gained, we don't know if he gained it then or if he gained it earlier, right?
We always assumed
it may have even been it may have even been later, because he mentions perfect pitch when he's in prison with or when he's visiting Kaladin in prison.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, because Rissyn's commenting on things like, she's like, wait, things are perfect color or whatever like that, and she's commenting on that after she picks up the Dawnshard. And I wonder if the one that she has is associated with awakening as well as maybe another kind of magic, and the magics that Hoyd has are he has different ones, and he's picking up all the other, magic systems as we've seen him doing. And I'm wondering if she started with the Nalthus one and he started with a different one, and it's kind
I
of...
have no idea.
That's I'm not wording it quite as well as I want to, but I hope that makes sense.
That one's...
This totally just came into mind now.
That's one that I can't discount it, but I don't have enough evidence to the point where like any speculation would be already full on deep in.
Oh yeah, I know. I just that's what came to mind, and I had to say it, or else I was going to forget it.
That's interesting.
So anyway, that's just my thought.
I also wondered, because Rissyn does have, she is noticing the colors and the musicality of voices and stuff like that. So it sounds like she's reached a pretty good heightening, to use the Nalthian terms. So does she it almost seems like she's kind of got a divine returned breath without having had to die to get it.
Yeah. Yes,
which is a big bonus.
Oh, yeah.
It's very nice.
And we don't know which heightening she's at, because we haven't seen a lot of the other ones, because there's like agelessness and instinctive awakening, and she doesn't know how to awaken, so there's no way for her to have done that we've seen, And then it just goes up from there. But
okay, this is a quote from Brandon. Thanks to Eagle Dragon for providing the link.
Yeah.
Hoyd was a Dawnshard at some point in the deep past, and the reason he, even still, cannot physically harm people or even eat meat is related to the changes this made to his spirit. Consider this the same fundamental principle as savanthood. The few of you who have read Dragonsteel know that him being a Dawnshard was also the source of his immortality in that book, though the terms were different back then. The word Dawnshard was never mentioned, for example, though the primary story of Dragonsteel, which is no longer canon, was about several people who unwittingly became Dawnshards. And a preempted Raffo to all questions on this point.
We're just going to cut that
Oh,
up
Brandon.
right there.
You're so Brandon.
Oh, man.
So,
Oh, goodness.
yeah, okay, confirmed. Hoyd was a Dawnshard.
Okay,
Yeah.
I feel better, because I was like, wait, let's follow that logic, and it worked. So
Okay. So did we have any standout characters for each of you in this story?
I loved Rushu. Oh, I liked them all. That's the problem. Like, there were a bunch of the sailors, and I can't remember all the sailors' names.
They really were.
But I mean, I really liked how Lopin knew all their names and something about them. And I really liked Rushu. She was just really fun, being her normal self, and that she's just does not follow the norms, the social norms that she's expected to do. She's like, well, no, I'm not going to do that. Or I'm going to go to the island. I'm going to do the things I need to do. I'm not going to be limited by what's expected of me.
One of the things that was dumb, but I so relate to it, was the fact that Lopin wanted to sleep in their hammocks, and all the sailors thought he was crazy because he got a bed, and he's like, but you guys get hammocks. And I just think to myself, sleeping on a ship, a hammock would be very, very good. It sways with the boat.
It would rock, and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be like sleeping just on a cloud. Oh, that sounds relaxing.
Well, unless you get claustrophobic, because if it's not a very big hammock, it can just close right on your face, kind of.
Right.
I
In
could
a
see that,
plantain
and
could be fun.
yeah. But anyway, I could see that it's just the expected thing is that beds are better, are nicer, more expensive, and a hammock is cheaper and easier to produce, and that's why the sailors get them. But
No, but they actually that actually was true in a lot of sailing, is they would use hammocks for the reasons that Jordan just mentioned.
yeah,
Is because there's no getting tossed out of bed. It's you just move with the ship and you just hang with your own gravity.
and it takes up a lot less space. You can kind of
Much less
stack
space,
them
because you can hang them over each other.
Yeah, so you can fit a lot more people in a lot less space,
So
which is important.
So having had Edge Dancer and now Dawnshard, I really want to see a scene between Lift and Lopin. I think there's just so much fun to be had there.
Oh, that would be fun.
Particularly since we know that Lift is a little bit miffed that she can't fly.
Yeah.
Back to Rushu. This is the first time we've gotten to see Rushu not around Navani.
Navani.
Yeah.
And it's really nice to see her. It's not that she's like Navani thinks of her as flighty. And it makes sense for Navani to think that. Navani is one of the most controlled and absolutely poised people you've ever met.
Yeah.
Rushu's not flighty. She's intense. And she hyper-focuses on things. And she hyper-focuses on things that she finds important and interesting.
If we go along with the, just the fact that there's a lot of, mental conditions in Stormlight, she has ADD. What happens is she hyper focuses. She completely misses some things, and she hyper focuses on other things. And so in some areas it may be a detriment, but in other areas it's a superpower.
Yeah, because you can figure out stuff that other people wouldn't have noticed because they're not hyper-focused on it.
The other thing that's interesting is it would be easy for a character like her to come across as closed-minded, but she's actually insanely open-minded. And the fact that Huyo was messing with the span read, and then it leads to it accidentally leads to a discovery. It's one of these things that Lopin is sitting here just like, what? Wait, he did this on accident? Oh, no, this is pretty typical. This is how we tend to discover things, is typically we're doing something else, and then and it's true. That's exactly how we discover things.
Well, it's like the age-old story of the discovery of penicillin. You leave something out, and it grows something, and you're just like, wait, what? This is doing something.
Well, it's just because humans are biased towards trying to do things that work. But to discover new things, you got to abandon what used to work for the new thing.
Well, that's like at Pixar, one of the creeds that's been there since the founding of it is fail fast, fail often. Because if you're not willing to fail, you're not going to discover anything new. If you don't figure out what doesn't work, then you're not going to be able to figure out what does work.
Yeah.
And the only way you're not going to fail is if you're not trying.
Yeah.
I loved Rushu, and I loved the discovery of I don't know how we invented Professor X's chair in
yes.
Yeah.
And it was it was kind of heartwarming and heartbreaking at the same time reading about Risen, like how much she got out of that chair. And being able to move back and forth. And like even just the little changes she'd done before that, just like having the chair that's higher up that it was strapped into place and so that she could be up there, and like all the times that she's like, well, maybe we can have it so that I can actually float at like normal height as other people so I don't feel like a child in the room.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, oh man, that would be tough that everybody is up.
Yeah.
All the time.
If you read the acknowledgments at the beginning, one of the things that Brandon talked about is he did do a lot of research talking to paraplegics and amputees and figuring out that perspective, trying to get that voice right. And I love that he puts that kind of work into it because it just makes it feel that much more real.
Yeah.
I also love that, for example, with the chair, the first thing that they invented using that, it was awkward. It didn't work right. And so it's not just immediately, oh, I figured this out. Hey, now we have a space chair.
It's
great.
Like,
no, we have this awkward, wobbly thing that we can figure out how to use and then iterate upon. I like watching the technology evolve over the course of these books. Navani has been doing it with, like when she created the platforms in
was it
Words of Radiant?
Yeah,
Words
I
of
think
Radiance?
it was.
Yeah. And you see, she's like, okay, here's the first stage. It's not like, hey, this is something we can do. Awesome, now we have a spaceship. Well, no, you get all the little parts separately and you iterate upon them. And after a while, you build something cool out of each of these different little parts. It's not just kaboom. you know?
Yeah, and I mean, even with Bridge 4, when they were talking about the ship, it's people are like, oh, it's so big and amazing, and it's like, well, it's just lots of little things all put together in just the right way to make it this.
Yeah.
Then the point is, in Rhythm of War, will we get a Back to the Future 2 hoverboard chase scene? That's what I'm really hoping that we get. Because, you know, I need Biff Tannen, but the Cosmere universe.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the Sleepless. Because, like, I'm still trying to figure out... They weren't the original protectors of the Dawnshard, clearly, because that was the ancient protectors, the Larkin.
Yeah.
And they're kind of stepping in and filling a gap. Mm-hmm. But we don't really know much about where they're from. So they seem to span the Cosmere. They're not just Roshar.
Yeah. And I wonder... Because they're very... The Kremlings are crustacean-like everything else on Roshar, so it would make me think that they started on Roshar, because
Unless
Go ahead.
Unless they're crustacean-like because they've evolved themselves to be that way to blend in on Roshar.
That's possible, yeah.
It also, brings into... Brandon has mentioned anytime you see a funny-looking Kremling... Pay attention, because it probably has something to do with Sleepless. The scene where Hoyd is having a chat with a Kremling when he's waiting for Yeston to show up. Oh,
that's right, yeah.
And it's just like, and if Hoyd has been a Dawnshard at some point, that's another link to the Sleepless. So it's just like, that wasn't just a I know what you are. That may have been a hello, old friend, let's have a chat while I'm waiting or something.
Yeah.
The thing that's interesting about the concept is they say that I tried to find it, couldn't find it, where they had confirmed that they had found I think it was 2 others like Cheery Cheery.
Yeah, yeah. When they were talking in the cave towards the end, and they said that they had 2 others, but they didn't get as big as Cheery Cheery.
Yeah, it makes me wonder what
why Cheery Cheery grew and they didn't.
Well, I mean, we know partially why. We do know Cheery Cheery got an insane amount of investiture in Oathbringer, because she drained what the King's Drop.
The King's Drop,
That's
which
true.
is a lot. I think she did that, and then she had a big old nap.
Oh, that's right, because she got all lethargic afterwards.
And we find out why.
Herself.
She's growing too big for her to move around. She's collapsing under her own weight. And so it makes sense. She has to bond to the Lux Spren, which we know are gravity Spren.
Which also, those are what pull the ships in Shadesmar.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
The Mandras.
The Mandras, yeah.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that.
Okay, so in chat, S-Picker says, can we talk about the fact that the Sleepless can drain Stormlight? That's another thing, is they have evolved Kremlings or Hordlings that can work the same way as Larkins, and so they can actually suck Stormlight the same way. That's interesting. Did they breed with Larkins to get that ability? I hadn't even thought about that.
Oh,
that
man,
just seems...
I
don't want to think about
I doubt
Sleepless breeding.
No, in all honesty, because of the way they work and how they can self-evolve.
Exactly.
I bet they have some concept of genetics and probably had some way to examine how it is, the mechanisms that Larkin used to drain Stormlight, and probably figured out how to reverse bioengineer it.
Yeah. It reminds me a little bit of Abathur in StarCraft 2, how he evolves the different traits and everything for
Okay, now I'm going to read every single Sleepless with Abathur voice, and it's going to be hilarious. There's a whole host of people who never played StarCraft. They're just, I don't get this. But to the 7 of you who did and read these books, that joke was hilarious.
Sorry, we're reading the Eagle.
Yeah, Eagle Dragon in chat just answered the question, I think, with another word of Brandon. It says, "How somebody or Storm Lightning asks, how hard would it be for a Sleepless to imitate the Larkin powers in one of their hordlings?" Brandon says, "Oh, they would take generations and generations of purposeful attempts at mutating that out." Storm Lightning, "Could they theoretically do it?" Brandon Sanderson, "They could theoretically do it." When was this asked?
This was asked
FanX Spring 2019, so April of last year. So, wow.
Oh, okay.
Brandon's just like, they're on to me. I've got to put it out before.
We're going to go theoretically.
They could do that. Either that or Brandon's just like, yeah, they could do that. Interesting.
It's still one of my favorite tropes of just where the author does steal the fan theory. It was just one of my favorites was from DC animated universe where like at some convention he's like, yeah, I just didn't like how we did this. Like that just felt like a bit of a Deus Ex Machina. And one of the fans was just like, oh, I always took that sort of as this character was doing that and that's why that happened. And they just sit there. Yeah, you know what? That's why. That's
right. Yeah, we're gonna go with that.
I'll take it.
Yes.
Oh man.
Then okay, so I love just throw it in here. I'm a physics dork a bit on this one. The fact that aluminum ruins the axes of motion, but because they can only ruin it in one way with how they angle the aluminum, the fact that works and that's what creates the hovering, because they suddenly negate the part that is either the up and down or the side to side, and it just lets you float because the magic puts you there, and it's like, well, I mean, there's nothing to push against for it to go back the other way, so it just hovers.
Yeah, as I was reading a lot of these conversations, I'm just like, oh my gosh, my electrical engineering and mechanical engineering and computer engineering friends and physicist friends are going to drool as they read this. Because that's the thing, is like there was like, binary concepts and stuff going on in here. I'm like, we're going to get a supercomputer at some point, and it's going to become Skynet, and it's going to take over the world, and everything's just awful. So
it turns out that's what the Cosmere is about. They're worried about the rise of the machines.
It's called Cosnet.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, Texas Blade in chat reads, that's right. So they did say, we once assumed, Nickley said, noticing her attention, that the last of the Lancerin had died, and the few hordlings we had bred with them were all that remained. So they bred hordlings with the Larkin.
Which is still weird.
Yeah, so...
Then one of the other really neat things that he throws in here is when they get to Akina, just the layers upon layers of red herrings that they're trying to throw.
Well, like the fake gemstones
and they're sitting here. Come on, God, would you take the bait? Would you
just take it?
Well, and so Risson has promised to train them, how to be better
humans,
how better imitate humans. And I'm just like, if they start chatting with light weavers, they're if a light weaver is one of the ones that trains them, then
forget that. The issue is they're going about this far too complicated. They just need a good hat. We've learned that that's all you need.
No, we won't know about that for another,
But do they need like millions of tiny hats, or do they just need one hat?
That's a good question.
Well, I was going to say one big hat, but now that you're tempting me with like millions of tiny hats, I have to have those.
You have hordlings, and then the next evolution is hatlings.
Oh, goodness.
Hatted hordlings.
Oh, man.
Oh, I love it. Well, no, especially because we know Wayne is alive at this point in time because this is right at contemporary time with Wayne.
And Wayne would totally take this in stride. He already has a Contra girlfriend.
Yep.
This is not the weirdest thing he's dealt with.
Nope.
One of these days, I want to see a chat between Wayne and Shallan because I think all kinds of interesting identity stuff would just come oozing out.
I want Wayne and Nightblood.
Why not both? We can have both, right? It'll be great.
Oh, dear.
Oh, then the other thing that was interesting was I loved... So, I used to work a phone job, and while it was mostly service, we did have a requirement to get a certain number of leads. And I worked at Fidelity Investments, so it was people's money. And we had to get leads for people to bring in more money. It wasn't a huge number, but I hated it. I hated doing it because I just hate having to sell stuff. And I finally got a boss who had been on the sales side. And when I expressed my concerns, he's like, "Oh, no, you're approaching this all wrong." And he's like, "You shouldn't have to sell them on anything." He's like, "We're this big, giant corporation that offers so many products." And he's like, "The odds are if they're calling us, it's because they have something that they need. That's why they're calling us." And he's like, "What you need to do is start asking the correct questions. And in asking the correct questions, you will realize, what they need is X, and you're not selling them on X. You're finding the need that they have, and you're providing them a solution." So when Rissyn starts talking about that with, these trade deals that she's doing, I just was taken back. And it's not often in fantasy that we get the heroic salesman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jordan and I have talked about this before, but it reminded me of several years ago. I worked at a piano store, and there were a few main salesmen there, but two of the biggest ones were the owner and the manager of the store. And it was really interesting watching the two of them work because the manager would try to sell people a piano. The owner would help people buy a piano. Now, one of the two had a lot of returns. He'd get people out the door having, quote, bought a piano, but, a week or two later, they're back with buyer's remorse, and they're just like, "No, I don't want to do this." So the owner, meanwhile, has people come in, sending people to him and saying, "Hey, this guy will fix you up. He can figure out what you want, and he'll help you get a really great piano." So he has all these happy customers, and it's a completely different mindset. It's also the concept of this is the guy who owns the business and just lives it, breathes it. It permeates him. And then the other one is this is a guy who comes into his job and is trying to make a commission.
Yeah.
And I love Rissyn's approach in the situation where Cord's off trying to get weapons, which Rissyn understands the hopelessness of their situation, and I think the line is she's like, "You can't always negotiate from a position of strength." And so instead, she makes a makeshift table, sits at it, and just waits for them. And she's sitting here just like, "Sleepless, I have come to bargain."
But she raises the right points. She figures them out. She sees not what they're doing to her, but what they're trying to accomplish. It's like she sees what the why is and figures out how to solve that problem rather than just trying to stop them from doing X.
Well, she's sitting here. She's not worried about what can they do for me. She's trying to figure out what she can do for them.
And they keep saying, "Well, you can't give us anything." And she's like, "No, you need something. Even if you're not human, you still need something, and I can facilitate it in some way, shape, or form."
And it goes back to the conversation with my boss. He's like, "You need to start asking the correct questions. You got to find out. You got to get in their head." And she is so good in this book at putting herself in someone else's shoes and trying to understand it. At this point, I would love to see what would happen if they taught her forgery on Elantris. I bet Rissyn would be pretty good at it.
Well, and again, that's an example of the growth that we see. Because again, Risen was one of the characters that annoyed a lot of people, I think, in her earlier, but just because she was very whiny.
She was a bratty teenager. As my father told me, there is nothing the world is less interested in than a teenager's opinion. He told me this when I was 14, for the record. Now, he was doing it to help me understand that don't talk in this mixed company. No one cares about your opinion. Not because he didn't care about my opinion, but just the company.
Generally, yeah, that's not what society wants to hear.
But again, by this book, though, she has really grown into the lessons that Vistim has been teaching her over the past few books.
Yeah, and I mean, she's had really big experiences that have changed her so that she's
absolutely
had to grow.
Can we talk about how insane everyone's names are in this book? It's like 5 consecutive consonants.
So many consonants. It's the Thalen.
I just stare at it, and I'm just like, what is this supposed to be? This looks like a bad hand in Scrabble.
Speaking of the Thalen, I wonder if that's how he named them. Is he just reaches into a bag of
Scrabble bag
tiles.
or bananagrams, and there we go.
That's not a bad theory.
Yeah.
But can we talk a little bit about the captain? Because I think her relationship with the captain is really interesting.
She starts out really not liking Risen at all, and it takes Risen a minute to figure out why that is.
And as soon as she figures it out, she's like, I get it. I understand why she's upset with me.
Mm-hmm. But I like it that they get past that.
Mm-hmm. And her concept isn't, they're treating me so poorly. Oh, they're so mean to me. She's just like, okay, because she does make the faux pas of asking to steer the ship out, for a little bit, and the captain's just, basically says no and never ask again.
Did that happen on screen, or was that just referenced?
No, it was referenced. And
I thought it was referenced. Not
because she asked to steer the ship, and it was basically indicated Vistim had worked for years to earn
the right
that right, and it was just sort of when you've earned that right, and subtext, which you never will do in my eyes, then I will let you know. You do not ask.
Yeah.
And
you get told you don't ask.
Drolwan was her name.
Drolwan. Yeah, Drolwan.
I'm going to stick with Captain because I'm not going to get that name right now.
So in searching for a name, I forgot the name of the captain of Yalb ship was Smida, and I'm just like, it's Smitty.
Oh yeah, I forgot
Pat,
about that.
I'd like to buy several vowels, please. Just share them with the Thalens.
They need some.
But
you think
but
they could
just
get
watching
good, they're good at trading. They should be able to get a few vowels.
Well, they've just gone all in on the consonants.
Yeah.
They're trying to corner the market. But watching Risen and Drulwan's relationship evolve, and particularly where the tipping point was when Risen had the opportunity to walk away with her own life, and she's like, no.
It's the crew.
Want them too. Like I'm responsible for them, so we're not done until they're safe as well.
Yeah.
And I love that. She didn't tell Drulwan. It was one of the Sleepless that told her.
Probably, yeah.
And it mentions.
Is that it? Okay.
Yeah. And the captain is just like, okay, this is something special because she literally put her life on the line for us. She is not in this just as some little punk trying to make a name for themselves. She's part of this crew, and she sees us as part of her family, and so we will. And it was just really interesting seeing that acceptance coming towards the end.
Yeah.
To ask a question that S. Picker put in chat, did you see the Nickley being the Sleepless?
I just bought right into what Brandon was selling me, and as soon as that happened, I got exactly the gasp that he was giggling about waiting for.
I don't think it totally surprised me, but I don't think I pegged it as a Sleepless. I just felt like there was something off about it a little bit, but I was also, when I was reading it, I was like getting on planes and like my brain was other places too, so that didn't help. But I didn't immediately, I wasn't when I saw that it was a Sleepless, I was like, oh, yeah, that would make sense with some of the weirdness.
Now, one thing I did notice is now we have some clues as to what to look out for in some of the future books, because we saw Arklo's full name and Nickley's full name, and both of those contained their shortened names. And now we have the names of some other Sleepless. So it's like, okay, if something in this long string of names shows up, then that's probably a Sleepless.
See, for me, this is one of those, like, okay, this is one of the plot twists I actually saw. And when I got the chapter, I'm just sitting here just like, hot dang, I got one.
Yes, you're very smart. Shut up.
Good job.
It's one of those things, because Brandon's so good at hiding them, when I get one, I just feel so good.
It's an accomplishment. It's good.
Absolutely.
It was interesting when poor Lopin got beat by the worm thing. That poor Lopin.
The sandworm that just sort of...
The sandworm, yeah, that like came up and like just... And he was like, I'm totally going to keep dodging. It's not going to smack.
It's like, oh, we're in Dune. Cool.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't expect a genre shift out of nowhere.
But, oh gosh, there's...
I just love Julio. I laugh again. I just laugh so hard as soon as Julio summons the shard hammer, and then just like it dawns on you. Protect those that I hate.
Oh! So, can I also say, speaking of ships, I actually kind of ship Julio and Rushu a bit. I like the idea of the nerd love. And I think
love
they
that
could
sound that Amy just made.
I can squeak all day, don't worry. Yeah, I don't know.
But that ruins my Rushu Kaladin ship I have going on the side here.
I'm sorry, Kaleshradin is just it flows off the tongue too well.
Again, I'm not fighting you on the name. The name is high quality, S tier, good work.
Oh, I've just never been good at mashing names together at all. Man. I remember way back when I was in study abroad in Japan, like we had an assignment where we were supposed to mash together a name or something, or I had to read an article about mashing celebrity names together, and I was still bad at that, even figuring out what they were. I like my ships, but I don't really have as many in this one.
See, and I'm just like, I'm shipping the ships.
Okay,
but,
we didn't talk about
I love maritime stuff.
The fact that we go and we see Rissyn talking to Navani. And
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a very different angle that we get to see Navani from than usual.
Mm-hmm.
We also... Oh! Sorry, we'll talk about Navani, and then I have some... Remind me that I had an oh.
You have an oh, okay. But go ahead, Jordan.
No, go. I want.
Oh,
I've lost all interest. I want to know what makes people go oh.
The fact that the Reshi King is a Dustbringer.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
And the fact that we know that there's issues.
And the fact that Lopin just decides to swoop in and fly up to the top of the room in Eurythera, and he's just like, I thought you'd like a view.
Should be great.
And
it doesn't.
And he gave you his permission first.
It was implicit.
He didn't say
it was
no.
implied. But it's
I
just,
was merely paraphrasing.
I was anticipating his whims, sir. Oh man, it was just. But yeah, the fact that the king is a Dustbringer, and then that's just sort of one of those, I'm going to drop this grenade and then walk away. You know?
Yeah, and so you're like, it makes you wonder, because we haven't heard anything about the other Dustbringer whose name is, I always forget her name.
Mulata?
Yes.
And we know that there are other Dustbringers as well.
Yeah, but we haven't seen anything
Reshi
about
King,
him.
not the Reshi King, but the one from, I can't remember the Great Shell's name.
Mulata, that's her name, Mulata. Anyway.
But yeah. And so anyway, back to Navani. Sorry
Yes.
about...
So I go ahead,
The
Jordan.
other thing was it's interesting to get the perspective of the Alethi from everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Because they've been the warmongers for so long that even with all that they've done, everyone still has them at arm's length.
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone knows their history and everyone has dealt with them, and they just can't bring themselves to fully believe it, because if they're wrong, they're doomed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I did like the little notes that Rissa noticed about Navani and the fact that, like, she came and sat in a chair, not behind the desk, and so she made it more personal and more on Rissa's level, and so it wasn't being as intimidating and things like that. And I feel silly because I realized partway through when I was starting to read it that I kept thinking it was Yasna she was meeting with, and I was like, wait, no, you're reading the name Navani, Amy. What's wrong with you? It's not her. It's not the daughter. It's the mother.
That happened to me as well. I don't know why that happened to me. And what threw me out is when she said my husband. I'm like, wait, what? What?
Wait, what? Yasna's
wait.
Wait.
Why do I keep putting Yasna in here?
I think because she's the queen.
I think that's because
they refer to her as the queen. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that may be part of what threw me.
And she is queen of Urithiru.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway,
she's the former Dowager Queen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, she's still the Dowager Queen, I guess.
Yeah.
Navani wears many hats.
But the actual
crowns,
queen, she's
many
the
crowns.
actual queen of Urithiru.
Yeah.
But yeah, oh gosh. So much in such a short... And it's one of those, you finish it and you're just like, I want more. And I'm like, but 1 week. We have 1 week and then we're good.
Mm-hmm.
And there is more. And it's going to be so much more.
It's going to be delicious.
The other thing that I loved, this is going way, obviously we're all over the place, Yalb's introduction. I loved that it's just like, spooky ghost ship thing, Yalb, you deal with it, and Yalb's like, yep, that's my lot in life now. I'm now the spooky ship guy. Anytime it's weird, yes, I'm a Ghostbuster. Let's do this.
Yeah, that's kind of it. It's just like, I wasn't on, I didn't interact with,
I just managed to live. Okay, all right.
Yep. Oh boy. All right. Any other thoughts before we wrap up?
There were lots and lots of cool things, and Cord.
So many cool
she was
things.
just awesome. I liked Cord.
We didn't even really talk. We haven't even talked about Cord.
Yeah, I mean, it was because I hadn't thought about how the Horn Eaters, they don't really have any shards. And so that they feel really weak, whereas I always think of them as rock, like as their one representative, really. And he's not a weak person. And so I don't picture them as being weak or whatever. But then seeing from Cord's perspective and how distressed she is about it was kind of interesting.
Well, the other thing is, one of the things that Brandon likes to do is to introduce a culture. He shows you the exception.
Mm-hmm.
And rock is kind of an exception.
Yeah.
Well, and on top of it, because that was the whole thing, that was the whole reason he ended up on the bridge cruise to start. And I love Cord fully adapting to the new world. They now understand what it is in the Horneater Peaks.
Mm-hmm.
And she's, even at a young age, she's understanding that this is going to change everything. And people will come for it, and even people who mean well are going to see it as a liability. Mm-hmm. And as she's like, they'll say it's for our own good, when the reality is it's just like, we can't, you guys aren't strong enough, we have to do this. They will feel obligated to.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And so they need to be strong to prevent this. And I love it coming from someone so young, but at the same time still a little naive, because she thinks she's got the Sleepless in over a barrel, because she's pulled some, trick of, haha, this is a clever word game that you tell children, and the Sleepless are just sort of like, what? No.
We've been around for how long?
we're not bound by that. Oh, I thought this would be sort of like the gods at my place. Okay, no.
Oh,
okay.
whoops.
Continue on. Go back what you guys are doing. I'm gonna try again later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Cord is an interesting character. I'm looking forward to learning more about her, I think.
Yeah, and I did like the surprise that Brandon managed to pull over me a little bit with how it showed Risen suspecting, I'm forgetting everybody's names now, Nickley. And when Nickley tried to blame it on Cord.
Uh-huh.
And then, no, they knew it was him.
It was
instead.
a trap, rather. Yeah, it was interesting, because a lot of times in these, there's an imposter among us type situations, like the Thing and that kind of stuff. They draw it out, and they make it so that the imposter is always 3 steps ahead of everybody, and it's terrifying. This one, it was actually a lot shorter than you would have expected it to be.
Oh yeah, it was really pretty quick.
And which I appreciated, because, oh gosh, those things just give me anxiety. I'm just like, as soon as somebody's deep in, it's,
It's going to be so much fun because everyone's getting in some way involved with everyone else at this point in the story. Mm-hmm. And there's so many crossing connections.
Yeah.
That, I don't know, just like Yalb showing up, and it's like, remember how much fun it was when Kaladin and Shallan finally met? Get ready, because everyone's going to meet everyone.
Yes, and I really hope that it gets passed along to Shallan that Yalb's alive somehow. That would be
absolutely
nice. I don't know that it'll happen.
She actually probably knows, I would say, at this point. Just because they are sailing, Yalb is sailing for the Coalition, and it's specifically they're wanting to train Alethi sailors.
Yeah, but I don't know. It'd be a fun scene for me to see, but I don't know that it's going to happen.
So I think she probably knows.
She's also probably really busy.
Yeah, that's what I was like. She's really busy. I don't know that she would.
All 3 of them.
They'd inform them. They're all busy. Yes, very busy.
Oh boy. All right. Well, again, any final thoughts before we go?
It's awesome. Everybody should read it.
Definitely worth reading.
And if you haven't read it and you've listened to this, then I'm sorry. We spoiled like everything.
Hey, no, sorry. They were warned.
They knew it. Their tickets. They knew
what they were coming into. Yep.
Spoilers.
All right. Well, for our listeners, make sure to join us next week for the pre-Rhythm of War title belt, where we will be joined by Arian from the World Hopper's Guide to the Cosmere, and Amy, and I will face off in making predictions about Rhythm of War. That will happen on Monday, November 16th, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern at www.twitch.tv/InnkeepersTable. Until then, on behalf of Amy, Jordan, and myself, thanks for listening, and remember, there's always another secret.